Hello, welcome back to Tom's Comedy Club. Ooh, it's that time of the year. It's almost August, which means it's nearly time for the end of the fringe. Da 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 da. And this means the one comedian 8 questions back. My yearly, turns out, a yearly roundup to try and promote the fringe as much as possible. I know that Next Up Comedy do a fantastic job of doing that by streaming them, but not every comedian is streamed, and some of the greatest comedians miss out on that opportunity. Why? It's probably the venue. I blame the venue rather than the people. But today, we've got a very special guest. My guest is all the way from Australia. I was about to say New Zealand. Why? I don't know. All the way from Australia. And she's also best known for once removing her toilet seat for another toilet seat. Who knows why? It's the one and only Grace Jarvis.
Hello. I'm from both. I have Kiwi parents, so you were not wrong when you went from New Zealand. I have both passports, don't worry.
Well, that's good. So when you go over the border, you don't have to faff about with trying to go in the wrong area.
No, exactly.
And so with this we have 8 questions. So with this we have to find out whether or not I do get to 8 because my math is terrible. Hooray! Hooray for terrible math. Why do I choose to do this? Who knows? I call it torture to myself. So let's see what question number one, or whatever one is in any other language. Whether or not that was one, we'll find out later. But let's spin the wheel. Let's spin the wheel. Oh, and the wheel's on fire. Where is it? Where do we go? Oh, here we go. So, when did you know that comedy was a viable option to get paid for? As in, you don't have to do any other jobs. You can just focus on comedy.
It's not now, not yet. I still do many other jobs. I guess, yeah, I guess I'm still in the process of making that happen. It's in an interesting position in Australia because the comedy industry is it's a little smaller than other countries, so there's sort of not that much work. So you really need to be in a very specific position to be getting paid for exclusively comedy. But yeah, I still do my casual job. I record audio for the Supreme Court sometimes. Although at the moment I've not been working there for a while, so I'm sort of I'm in a transitional period of almost making money from comedy, but not feeling super great about it. Like there are, moments of like, I'm like, this comedy club owes me money and it will come on Monday, but currently I have $10. So it's, it's, yeah, I guess that moment has yet to arrive. I know that it is possible because some of my friends are in that moment. But yeah,
And
not quite yet.
before we get on to the next question, because I've got a very good. How do you go about recording? What do you do when you record audio for the Supreme Court?
Well, I just like log. It's like a weird computer program where like I watch courts all day and I log when people talk so that the transcriptionist doesn't get like 8 hours of audio and not know where anything is happening. So I just go like court commenced, court adjourned, so and like Mr. So and so talks here. This judge is speaking now, which is complicated sometimes because all the judges look like the exact same white man, and my video quality is not great. So I'm squinting at a like sort of feeble video of 3 men that look identical to me, being like, I hope it's this particular justice that's talking. They'll correct me in the transcript, I hope. Yeah.
When you mentioned, I just assumed you would be sat in the court with a microphone, just pointing.
Oh no, thank gosh. I mean, I don't have to do that anymore.
And so we're back to the wheel. Let's see what the wheel gives. There should be a jingle, but I don't know what the jingle could be. So, with every aspect of comedy, a lot of comedians travel on either a big bus or a small car. Which comedian, if you got to choose, which comedian would you want to go on tour with?
Oh, like as an opener?
Yes, like
Um,
you'll be there with them on this tour. You'll be stuck with them
I love Felicity Ward, Sarah Kendall. I'm naming Australian women who live in England now. Um, uh, who else? Like big. It's weird because Australia doesn't so much do the big bus thing. It's a lot of like flying between capital cities. Um, who else? Oh, I love Sarah Silverman, maybe. Uh, I don't know. It's odd. It's again, Australia and New Zealand. I wasn't really allowed to watch TV as a kid, so my access to like comedy from other countries was pretty limited. So I fell in love with stand up watching like the gala and like the comedy festival stuff on TV from Australia and New Zealand. So all my favorite comedians are Australians and New Zealanders, which is weird because I sort of met all my heroes within like 2 years of doing comedy. Like you just sort of gig with people where you're like, oh, I love you so much. And then you're like, oh, we're just on the same lineup now together. This is weird. Yeah, I'm not sure who I would love to, I'd open for whoever asked, to be honest, as long as they're not maniacal, I suppose. It seems fun to just be able to go. It's nice to be part of a team in that way. Comedy's really an individual sport. But I'm coming to Edinburgh with a bunch of I'm staying all in a house with a bunch of other comedians and our producer. And I was like, when that got organized, I was like, yeah, it feels good to be like a part of a battalion, not doing this alone, like making comedy a team sport.
And to Richard's friend, what I said earlier, I don't think I know any comedians that go on big buses. I don't think I can name a comedian that goes on a big bus.
No. Maybe Americans? I know Kevin Hart. He seems like he would like a big bus. I don't know.
He's small enough. It'll make him look bigger. He is a very small man. It's Kevin Hart. Not as small as Tom Cruise, but he's very small.
Yeah, but a big bus wouldn't make him look bigger. It'd make him look smaller. Yeah. He'd want a little bus.
He would. So we move on to question number 3. Let's see what it is. It is. So we'll start with Julie Andrews, which she's really annoying me at this moment in time. But she always says, "Let's start at the very beginning because it's a very good place to start." And so I keep a reference to her, so that's why she annoys me. So
she hasn't actually done anything to you.
No.
Perfectly nice lady.
Well, I don't know, never met her. So, how did you get into the industry called funny la ha 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 comedy?
I moved out of my like small country town because when I was a teenager and as a kid, I loved watching the gala on TV and like any stand up like that was on the ABC and like Australian and New Zealand stand up, and I didn't think of it as an option. I don't know. I don't know why I never thought of it as an option for me. It was just something that I loved, and I didn't think that it was something I just didn't. I never know where the rules are or where to start. So I never thought of it as something I could do. But I moved to Brisbane, which was like the nearest big town, to go to university, and I didn't make any friends my entire first year of university, and then I got to sort of the end of it, and I don't really drink. I kind of do a little bit now, but at the time I didn't like the taste. I wasn't into it. So it was like other 18-year-olds are like, that's all we want to do. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll maybe hang out here alone, I guess. And so I sort of got to the end of my first year of uni and hadn't made any friends. And then I sort of was like, oh, wait, I'm 18. I'm allowed into bars. And bars is where they have comedy. And so I like signed up for an open mic at like 4 p.m. on a Sunday in Brisbane. And it was like the sun was still out. The crowd was only other comedians. And I did my first set that my dad had helped me write. And I was like, this is it. I want to do this I only want to do this forever. This is like the worst gig in the world, and I'm like, I'm hooked. This is it. This is everything to me. The sun is out. No one's like people were laughing, but it was like there's only 4 of you, so there's only so much laughing you can do. Yeah.
I do. Was it like more harsh being like judged by other comedians and because it's your first time? Did you feel the more pressure because they were comedians themselves?
I think I didn't know at the time. Now I'm like, yeah, it's way harsher when it's your peers and no one else. But at the time, I don't think I knew that it was other comedians until afterwards, and then they all did their sets, and I was like, oh, okay. Are there any audience members in this room? One, okay. So I was pretty nerve-wracked by the entire experience, like at all. So I'm not sure it would have made a huge difference, but it was just the worst gig, just awful. And I was like, I found my calling. Like, it's just nightmarish. God, I wish I was a law. Like, I was like, wish my calling was like law or medicine, something. But no, this is it.
And do you think you've improved from your first ever time doing comedy?
I would hope so. Yeah, I think definitely. I used to do a lot of like I was so young, and Queensland, like Brisbane, and because there's not that many gigs in Brisbane, so we would go to the Gold Coast, which is just rough. Like a really rough town, and like it's all people there, like they're all on like steroids and like surfing holidays, and it was just so rough. So it was a lot of be funny or get glassed. So I used to do a lot of stuff when I was young of like, I'm fine and I'm anxious and I'm just a little girl and you don't have to listen to me. I'm fine. Just hearing my jokes. So I think I developed a lot of like mannerisms on stage to like protect me from a potential hostile crowd that I've sort of grown out of a little bit now, where I'm sort of just like plant my feet. These are my jokes. They're funny. And that I think has improved a lot. And I try to do less jokes about like how I look or like how I dress and stuff, because I feel like when you're first starting, you sort of feel like everyone's looking at you and you have to address what's obvious. And if you feel more insecure and you're like, oh, I guess I just have to tell you this, thing. And it's like, I know, I dress like a psycho. But now I'm sort of like, that's actually not up for debate. Like, I dress like a psycho and it's not part of this. I'm wearing a gingham skirt and a corset and it's actually not part of the show. I have jokes about other stuff. So yeah, I think I would hope I've improved. Yeah.
So we move on to question number 4 or 5. I've now lost count, but hey,
4. I reckon 4.
I think someone's counting. I should write it down somewhere, but who cares? Right, let's see what the next question is. Here we go. So from what I can see, it seems to me like it's a recent thing, this, but I don't know, I might not be looking in the right place. Do you think uploading a full show onto YouTube benefits the comedy industry?
I don't know. I have never. I suppose if you're done with it, if you don't want to tour it anymore, and I think it's sometimes beneficial to like have proof of talent, like to be able to have something to send people to be like, look, I did a whole hour. You can look at it. But I suppose like I have like friends who've like put specials online, and then I have people who've like shopped them around and gotten like them bought by streaming services or whatever. I don't know. I think it is it is an interesting idea of like, I think it kind of looks like you're putting your work out there for free, which in a way you are, but it's like you don't put it up until you've already toured it, like you've already done it to all the festivals you were going to do it at. So it's not like you weren't paid for it. And And I think it is beneficial. It's beneficial to have like people be able to have access to you that might not have before, who can now go, oh, this person is talented, or even like just in the industry, people to be like, oh, this person's talented. I would, maybe I would want to buy their next one or something like that. I suppose it's not really my area of expertise. Uh, I do like TikTok and stuff stresses me out because I feel like it's stressed crowds out because when you people are always like keep posting, it's how you stay relevant, it's how people come to your shows and stuff. But if you don't want to burn your material because you want people to come and see it at your show, I found that people just post like clips of them doing crowd work, which makes audiences think that stand-up comedy is crowd work. And that is stressful because I don't do crowd work. I really don't engage the audience huge amounts. I've written like a tight 50-minute script here. I don't have time to get into it with you. I'm jokes. Like I don't really do crowd work, but people are terrified of coming to shows because they think you're going to harass them because they've seen so much crowd work on TikTok. And I'm like, crowd work is its own skill. And if you're good at it, you're good at it. But I'm more afraid of you than you are of me. I'm like a snake. Yeah, it's an interesting, yeah. And because then if you put your material out there and people come to your shows and they go, oh, I've seen this joke before, because they don't really understand how long it takes to write to jokes. It's another thing of like, they think they've been duped in some way, which is, I think it's good like for the industry. I'm not sure it's good for punters so much. Yeah. But then on the other hand, how are you going to get people to come to your shows if they don't know that you're funny? So it's all whatever you feel comfortable doing, I guess.
With stand-up specials, the evolution of people seeing them in their own homes has changed. I don't know where it started, but I think it was on VHS for a while, and they moved to DVD, and they moved to, and now they're all moving to YouTube because nobody want to bother with them anymore. And so it's a tricky thing to do because you don't know whether you want to get people to pay for it or you want it to be for free.
Yeah, it's still cool though to be able to like have people from other places access stuff. Like I think there's benefits in that for sure. But yeah, I don't know, just whatever you feel, I guess. I'm not sure I would put this year's show up just because it's a lot of like kind of personal stuff that when you're not in the room with it, you have more of space to be able to be like, oh, why is she telling us all of this? Like it's not as intimate on a YouTube clip, which incites people going, well, she's not funny. Well, also, I'm a woman on the internet, so I fear putting stuff up anyway. I once put up a YouTube short of just me doing jokes, and someone was like so mad at me in the comments because I giggled in between one of my lines, and they're like, oh, this giggling at her own jokes, what a hack. Like, oh yeah, classic woman crime, giggling. So it's it's a different kettle of fish as far as other people getting a say, because like if you come to my show and then afterwards you tell me I'm not funny, power to you. That's fucking brave, to be honest. Just say it to my face. Great, awesome. Say it. If you just say it behind behind a screen, I'm like, coward, like buy a ticket. Tell me to my face. This is not an interesting or useful analysis or criticism. You're just mad at me for who I am.
Well, you get tickets sold.
Oh, do I?
Anyway, you get if they didn't like you, but they want to tell you in person, they have to sit through it. So
well, exactly. Yes, buy a ticket to tell me you hate me. I agree. I think you should have to go through a hoop to to ruin my day.
Yeah, then you'll see they won't be bothered with that because I have to go and watch that now.
Yeah. I think also like specials and stuff
So we move on to question number 5.
Mhm.
The hesitance in that is it's brilliant. This is the perfect question. So, what is your brand new 2023 Edinburgh Fringe comedy show all about?
Um, it's called "This Is the Last Goldfish That I'm Going to Eat for You." It's called that because my dad thought that that would be a good name for a comedy festival show when I was like 19, and had been doing comedy 8 months. The man's too supportive. And it's about getting diagnosed with autism as an adult and looking back at all of the stuff I used to do to try and make friends and to try and blend in when I was a kid and failing. And yeah, just like sort of coming to terms with the fact that like my brain works differently and that's a good thing. As opposed to the sort of "you're a weirdo" rhetoric I have received my entire life. Which I don't know. I've been doing it. I did it in Melbourne. I did it in Sydney. I did it in New Zealand. I've been doing it. I've toured it a bunch. Like it's really come together, and it is a lot of when I first started being like, what point am I making here now? And then by this point in the process, like to bringing it to Edinburgh, I'm like, oh, I know what my point is. This is my point. Yeah, it's tricky because people don't really know what autism looks like. When you tell them that you have it, they look at you talking and they go, "Oh, but you're fine," and you're like, "Yeah, it's not really how it works." Um, I still don't really understand facial expressions or whether or not you're making fun of me right now. I have a bit in the show about how one of the many benefits of autism is that I didn't notice I was getting bullied. I only noticed I was getting bullied like 20% of the time. 80% of the time, I thought I was having normal conversations. And then 10 years later, I'm like, oh, that person was being very cruel, actually. So if you want to insult me, come to my show, buy a ticket, one, and then wait 10 years for me to figure it out. So yeah, it's a lot of your classic, I feel like a cartoon character in a movie about real people content in the show this year. And I have never eaten a goldfish. People get very confused by this. It's just a funny title. I go to comedy festivals and people are like, oh, funny name for a comedy festival show. I went to a theater in New Zealand and they were like, where is the goldfish? How many are you going to eat? I was like, no, there's no props. I've never eaten a goldfish. It's just a good analogy. I might have if someone had asked me to, but I have not.
I'm really concerned if you do try and eat a goldfish. I don't think it would digest very well.
No, it's a terrible snack. And expensive. You know, they're like $7 each.
Well, if you want to eat a goldfish, you can go to the sewers. There's probably a lot in the sewers.
Yeah.
Flushing down the toilet.
Yeah.
A good toilet flushing pet.
Well, the best, some would say. You'd struggle to flush a guinea pig or much else, really. Yeah, it's all goldfish as far as toilet flushing goes. Rabbit, maybe, flushed away.
That was a very good film.
It was very good.
So how do you think that the show is? Do you reckon the show is like developed over the time, doing it with these different types of audiences in different countries? Do you reckon you've like developed the show to make it more refined? Is the correct word?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. It's so fun to do a lot of shows because you get very aware of what lines are working and what isn't working. And like I had a reference to Tommy Cooper in the show when I first started, and it got cut pretty much immediately because apparently no one knows who Tommy Cooper is in Australia. Again, I wasn't allowed to watch TV as a kid, but I was shown Tommy Cooper dying on stage. Like that was essential cultural viewing. I've never seen The Simpsons, but I've seen that. So it's tricky to find out what references are universal and what are just stuff your parents thought were important.
I do think there's a vast difference from The Simpsons, Tommy Cooper. There's a very, I mean, you wouldn't see him in the, well, you would see him in the same room. They probably made a reference to Tommy Cooper, but I'm surprised that I assumed a lot of Australians would know who Tommy Cooper is.
I assumed this also, but apparently not. Or maybe not just like my area of, I don't know, my dad's dad was a lot older when he had him, so I'm sort of generationally dislocated about what's actually a relevant um reference. So stuff like that where it's like you figure out pretty quickly what's working and what's not. And some stuff where you just like are talking and you're suddenly like, oh, actually this is what I'm actually talking about. And then you go back that night and go, oh, I'm going to rewrite that joke so that it makes my point more effectively. Because I just on stage realized what my point actually was, and stuff like that. So it's very fun to have done it this many times. And like I'm sort of still looking at the script for Edinburgh and sort of changing the references and updating it a little bit. And even just like, because it's, it's a whole, comedy takes place over my, like, touring schedules take place during my life also. So like I realize things and like learn new things and like have new experiences and stuff that can go into the show and that makes some parts of the show more concise just because I'm a person living in the world while I'm doing a show, which I think is the cool part of live comedy, where it can just change a lot. And like sometimes it's never the same show every night. Like it's the same show every night, but something a little bit different probably will happen, or I'll say something a little bit differently, and it sometimes leads to a whole new revelation of, oh, this is good actually for the joke, which is really what's fun about festivals and touring and stuff.
Yeah, and I am still surprised that Australians don't know about Tommy. That's the thing that's really surprised me, because I assumed that at least somewhere someone would know who he is, because he's Welsh apparently.
This is what I mean. I'm like, I'm gonna try it again when I get to the UK, because I'm like, surely you guys will get this reference.
No, yeah.
He's one of yours.
I mean, it depends on the age of the audience. Obviously, I'm an exception, because no one of my age, which is 90, 18 and 90, which is the age demographic of the people I usually hang around with. I don't hang around with many, actually anyone really. But none of them know half the things I say, so they've never heard of Tommy Cooper, and then you try and then say someone else, and then you have to Google it to show them, and then they still know the wiser.
I know, and then the conversation has stalled. I'm the same. I have none. I know people looking at me are like, "How old are you?" And I'm like, "I'm 25," and they're like, "Why are you referencing stuff that happened like 100 years ago?" I'm like, "I don't know. I thought it was culturally relevant. My parents told me it was." I never saw The Simpsons.
Then you talk to the right generation that know these things, and they're over the moon that someone younger knows what you're talking about.
Well, sometimes then they're mad at me for making jokes about other stuff. So it's a really hard balance. I do have quite an older audience, I suppose.
When you first did this show, were you nervous that the reception to it wasn't going to be positive?
Oh, always. I'm just always terrified that like something I think is good is people are going to turn around and be like, how could you possibly think that was good? It was horrific, like a very worst case scenario up here in the old noggin. But I'm always terrified, like the first, like the week where, because Melbourne Comedy Festival, you open on a Thursday. So like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week, I'm like just terrified, just pacing the house, just like, oh God. And then I'm like, what if I've forgotten how to do this? And then I do the first night of it and I'm like, oh, right, I know how to do this. I'm good at this. This is okay. So, and then once you're in the groove of it, of like, 22 shows and then the next festival and then the next festival, and it's like almost hard to get out of the habit when you don't have a show the next day type of thing. It's a very stop-start kind of feeling of like, oh God, don't make me do this, don't make me do this. And then you're doing it and you're like, don't make me stop doing this. Yeah. I don't like changes in momentum.
And so we'll mention it again at the end, but we'll mention it here whilst we're in the subject. So where will you be performing the show? Whereabouts in Edinburgh will the show be taking place?
I'm at Underbelly in George Square at the Wee Coo, which is I think a shipping container on the corner of the grassy bit of George Square, at 5:50 every day.
And so let's move on to question number 6. See what it is. So this could apply to any country. Not specific. What's your dream comedy club to perform in?
Like dream, like I've never performed there, or my favorite one.
On there, so you're like you want to go there, but you haven't gone there yet.
Oh, I don't know. Anywhere. I'm like, it's not so much clubs as because anywhere, like the club could be a bad club, but like I love gigging, just in other places. I guess I don't even know what's I like the Monkey Barrel in Edinburgh is really fun, and the Stand in Glasgow I've heard is really good. Because like it's so weird because there's so much stuff where it's like, oh, that was my like dream club, and now you've done it a couple of times, and you're like, oh God, don't make me go back there. Like, but it was such a like, I really want to do this, and then you're doing it, and you're like, oh, it's not as much fun as I thought it would be, but it is like an achievement in some ways. I think just like I would really love to just be getting work in the UK, or America even, but I am afraid of America because I'm chronically ill, so I don't want to go there in case I end up in the hospital and never recover from the financial side of that. There's some really good clubs in Canada. My friend just moved to Toronto, and he's having like a great time. I would just love to be able to perform anywhere that isn't exactly where I am right now, I guess. I love Melbourne too. The Comedy Republic in Melbourne is like one of my favorite clubs ever. It's great.
Well, hopefully the Fringe will open up opportunities and make you more and even more well known around the world.
Hopefully. That's my worst part of this as a career, is having to email someone cold to be like, hey, can I perform at your club? I'm good at this, I promise. When it's like they don't know who you are and they don't know your name, and like you have to sort of really go like, this person vouches for me, I'm not a crazy person, and ask for work. And then once someone's seen you do well, you can be like, hey, can I have another spot type of thing. But it's like the moment, like the sort of trying to get into a scene before anyone's seen you is so scary, which is fair enough, to be honest, because when I first started comedy, I used to be just like friendly with everyone backstage, and then I learned the lesson that don't be friendly until you've seen their material. Just check that they're not going to go up there and start yelling racial slurs before you have a real chat. Just keep it polite, but not too intimate before you see what they think of the world.
And so we move on to question number 7. I think, yes, it is 7. I did do math.
Yeah,
definitely did math. And so this is a very good question because we're on a comedy channel. So for someone that might be watching this that wants to get into doing stand-up, what advice would you give them for their very, very first time?
I feel like sometimes people get stressed out by it so much. Just do it. Truly, just sign up. Just go. You will probably not be the craziest person there. If you are, then you're, at least good chat for everybody else. Yeah, I would say, yeah, just, and don't like, I think when I first started, I sort of had like kind of a bravado of like trying to be a bit more than I was. And I would say just be who you are. Like, just do jokes about what's going on with you type of thing. I sometimes, when people, I worry sometimes like young boys, like, 18, 19, 20, start comedy, and they think that they need to have a big opinion about like big topics in the news of like, oh, I need to talk about this sort of stuff. It's like you're not equipped, so you don't have the skill yet to handle big stuff like that. The audience is just sort of thrown by the fact that you've thrown something at us, and we don't feel safe with you to guide us in that sort of stuff. So my advice is always just like, can I hear a story about you? Can you tell me something funny that happened to you? Like, what's a funny thing that happened at school, or like on the, we saw something on the weekend, or like, what are you up to? Like, it's so much easier to start from a place of, I mean, it's stupid. It's like English teacher advice. It's like, write what you know. And what you know is just, I play soccer with my mates and this is a funny thing that happened, I want to hear that. I do not want your opinion on like race relations if you are a white man who is 19. You know what I mean? Like, I have no, I worry about sometimes people think they need to sort of really dive into a deep pool that they can't get their way out of. And I'm like, no, man, just funny, just whatever funny things that your mom says or whatever, like, tales. I mean, I'm an autobiographical comic, so I guess I'm maybe biased. I have lots of friends who do other kinds of jokes and are great at them. So, but yeah, try not to alienate your audience from day one, I guess, is my advice. You don't want to have to fight your way back to having them trust you after you've just dropped an incredibly touchy subject on them with no experience.
I think that's very good advice there, because you don't want to walk on stage and go, Donald Trump, hey.
Especially in the year 2023 when it is not relevant. Also, don't make fun of rap lyrics, because rap and comedy are the same. It's the same. It's just all jokes. So if you're willfully misunderstanding a lyric in a rap song, you're making fun of your own art form, essentially. It's the same kind of writing.
And so we move on to the final question, number 8. Woo! What could it be? I don't know. I did make the wheel, but I don't know what question it could be. And we spin again, because it was a repeat question. That does happen. Here we go. So here's a fresh question. So, when did you realise you were funny?
I don't know. It's such like, I'm so antipodean, like such like Australian and New Zealand tall poppy syndrome of like, oh, I'm not funny, I'm nothing. Like, so like immediately like, no, never, no. I don't know. I think I always was kind of a little performer, and I always loved like the comical roles in like school musicals and stuff like that. I always thought they were the most fun, and I would tell my friends stuff that had happened to me or stuff that I'd seen, and they would laugh. And I think also, like, this is kind of hack at this point, but like comedy as a bullying defense mechanism, it works. It's a good one. If the person who's calling you whatever they're calling you is now laughing, you're like, haha, I've won this thing that might still push you down the stairs later, but win the battle, not the war. I think in high school, I was sort of the funny friend of a little gang of other undiagnosed autistic girls. And then I started comedy and people laughed. Like I got on stage and started talking and people would laugh, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I can actually do this. I think I didn't notice for a long time that other people were laughing at what I was saying. I was just telling them because I was like, this is what happened to me, and people would laugh, and I'd be like, well, it's not a funny story. It's just I didn't mean for it to be funny. This is what happened, and this is how this is the cadence that I have. So I think I didn't really properly know until I was doing comedy, I guess. Because I always watched comedy and thought it seemed so unfathomably clever that I I never pictured myself being able to do it. And then as soon as I did start doing it, I was like, I can do this. This is a skill I actually have. Yeah.
And do you think being artistic helps you with comedy? Do you reckon that's more of a useful tool when you go on stage?
I think it gives you a unique perspective, which is an interesting thing for an audience and for jokes as well. Like I like sometimes you write a joke and you're like, oh, this is very funny. And then I say it and someone goes, I would never have thought of it like that. I would never have been able to put those dots together. And I was like, oh, well, that's just how the dots go together. That's just like, that just makes perfect sense to me. That's just like a funny thing I've thought of. So yeah, I think it does help. I think also other comics sometimes make fun of like, oh, are we having another show about getting diagnosed with ADHD? Which I think is unfair because it's a lot of women getting late diagnoses because they got missed. Like it's because we got missed. So it's like of course if that's what's happened to you in the last year, of course that's what your show is about. And it's a completely different show to anyone else's show talking about it because you've had a completely different life. But of course that's what you're writing about. And also, of course, like half of the comedians in my industry are autistic or have ADHD because this is the kind of career that attracts people who sort of whose brains are outside of the norm and who need, are dopamine deficient. Like it's I always wanted to be a performer and a writer, and as soon as I realized that I could write something, perform it that night, get validation that it was good, like my dopamine deficient brain was like, oh, perfect, this is perfect. Because like otherwise, you're auditioning for stuff, you get rejected, performing, like you get validation, but it's not your work. And writing, where you're like, I've had to write this whole thing and submit it, and then that takes weeks for someone to get back to me to tell me if it's good or not, or if they're going to publish it. Like comedy is the perfect career for someone who needs quick access to dopamine and validation and response. So I'm like, of course we're all neurodivergent. Sometimes I meet neurotypical comedians and I'm like, how have you ended up here? This is crazy. You got such a normal brain. It's actually impressive that you've ended up here in amidst all these misfits whose brains are weird. I definitely think, I think it is an advantage. I've had other, people be like, the way that your brain works makes you good at writing like this. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, it does. Which is very calming and validating to have had a life of like, that brain of yours was weird. And then you get into an industry where it's like, that's good, actually. We like that. And I'm like, wow, awesome. Perfect. I knew there was a place for me. Here it is.
And so there we go. We come towards the end of the interview. Now, this is the time to remind the audiences where can they see your show, what time is it on, and where can they buy tickets?
So I'm at Underbelly at 5:50, Underbelly in George Square at the Week Who, 5:50 every day except the 14th, I think. And you can buy tickets online. They're in my Instagram and my Twitter, at Grace Jarvis. Oh no. And yeah, the links are all there. You can buy them online. You can buy them at the box office. You can buy them from Underbelly itself. Yeah, very available. Follow me. I will be posting about it. You will not miss me posting about it. It's about to be a very intense month of posting for old Grace, I think.
And so there we go. Now, with One Comedian 8 Questions, we are going to be back very soon because it is almost August. So we have to get it. I have to get my little fingers in there to use my powers, use my magical wand of amazingness and promote as much as a fringe as possible, because Next Up Comedy does a very good job at promoting a good chunk of it, but there's so much fringe. There's not enough hours in Next Up Comedy's day to go around going, you can be streamed, you can be streamed, you can be. So I'm picking up the slack for them. I'm like Santa Claus. I'm like a chippy Father Christmas that works every day other than Christmas. I just don't work in. I give myself a day off because that's when he's working out. We work in shifts really. Me and fat. No, I was going to call him fat. He is. Well, me and Santa.
Father Christmas.
Yeah. And so join me next time on this channel for that. But if you want to see more interviews from this lovely face on our other 16 YouTube channels, because this would be channel number 17, I'll be on the main channel soon, and I'll be back on this channel, but not with one community question. That'll be later on soon. But it'll be another soon with another soon thing. So it'll all be soon. So, and remember, no, I've forgotten.